I never thought a simple swipe on Tinder could lead to the most terrifying experience of my life. It started innocently enough: a new match, a few exchanged messages, and the excitement of meeting someone new. His name was Adam, and he seemed perfect. Too perfect. Adam's profile was impressive. He was tall, athletic, and had a charming smile that made my heart flutter. His bio was witty, and he claimed to love the same things I did: hiking, cooking, and horror movies. We clicked instantly, messaging back and forth for hours. He was attentive, funny, and always knew just the right thing to say. When he suggested we meet up for coffee, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Our first date was a dream. We met at a cozy cafe downtown, and he was just as charming in person as he was online. He had this magnetic presence that drew me in, and before I knew it, hours had passed. We talked about everything: our favorite books, our childhoods, our dreams for the future. It felt like I had known him forever. But looking back, there were signs: small, almost imperceptible things that didn't add up. For one, he seemed to know a lot about me, more than what I had shared on my Tinder profile. He mentioned the university I attended, even though I had never told him. He knew my favorite coffee order, the one I always got at that specific cafe. I brushed it off, thinking he was just very observant, or maybe we had mentioned these things in our conversations, and I had forgotten. After that first date, we started seeing each other regularly. Adam was perfect, almost too perfect. He always knew what I wanted, even before I did. He would show up with my favorite flowers, take me to places I loved without me ever mentioning them. It was as if he could read my mind. One night, after a few weeks of dating, I invited him over to my apartment for dinner. I wanted to impress him, so I cooked a fancy meal, complete with candles and wine. Adam arrived, looking as handsome as ever, and dinner went off without a hitch. But as we sat on the couch afterward, something changed. His demeanor shifted. The charming, attentive Adam I knew was gone, replaced by someone cold and distant. He started asking strange questions, probing into my past in ways that made me uncomfortable. He asked about my ex-boyfriends, my family, even my fears. His questions were invasive, almost accusatory, and the way he looked at me sent chills down my spine. His eyes, once warm and inviting, were now dark and empty. I tried to brush it off, blaming it on the wine, but as the night went on, his behavior became more erratic. He started talking about things that didn't make sense, things that didn't fit with the person I thought I knew. He spoke about violence, about control, about how people could be manipulated into doing things they would never do otherwise. I felt trapped. I wanted him to leave, but I was too scared to say anything. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this a side of Adam I hadn't seen before? Or had I been fooled all along? Finally, I managed to come up with an excuse about needing to get up early the next morning. Adam's expression hardened, but he didn't argue. He stood up, gave me a strange smile, and left without another word. As soon as the door closed behind him, I locked it and sank to the floor, my heart pounding in my chest. Something was very, very wrong. Over the next few days, I tried to distance myself from Adam. I didn't answer his calls or texts, but he didn't take the hint. The messages became more frequent, more desperate. He would apologize for his behavior, saying he had a lot on his mind, that he didn't mean to scare me. But there was something off about his apologies. They felt forced, insincere. Then the gifts started. At first, it was flowers, bouquets of roses left at my doorstep, no note, just my name written in a neat, precise handwriting. Then it was chocolates, jewelry, even a brand new phone. I tried to return them, but there was no return address, no way to track where they had come from. And then the letters started. Handwritten notes, delivered to my mailbox, each one more disturbing than the last. The first few were apologetic, pleading with me to give him another chance. But as I continued to ignore him, the tone of the letters changed. They became darker, more sinister. He started to describe things, places I had been, things I had done, people I had talked to. He knew where I went every day, who I spent time with, even what I wore. The level of detail was terrifying. It was as if he was watching me, stalking me. But I never saw him, never caught a glimpse of him following me. One night, I came home to find a letter slipped under my door. The sight of it made my stomach drop. My hands trembled as I opened it, dreading what I would find inside. The letter was short, just a few lines, but it was enough to make my blood run cold. "Why are you ignoring me, Sarah? I know you're home alone tonight. Maybe I should come by and keep you company." I dropped the letter and backed away, my mind racing. How did he know? How could he possibly know I was alone? Panic set in, and I quickly checked all the locks, making sure every window was secure. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? That my Tinder date was sending me creepy letters? It sounded ridiculous. But deep down, I knew this was more than just a bad date. Adam was dangerous. I spent that night huddled in my bedroom, every light in the apartment turned on, jumping at every sound. My phone rang multiple times, but I didn't answer. I knew it was him. The hours dragged on, and I didn't sleep a wink. Every creak, every shadow felt like a threat, like he was there, just outside, waiting. The next morning, I decided to take action. I called my best friend, Jessica, and told her everything. She was horrified and insisted I come stay with her for a while. I packed a bag and left the apartment, feeling a little safer knowing I wasn't alone. Jessica was a godsend. She listened to my story, comforted me, and helped me figure out what to do next. We decided to go to the police, even if it felt like they wouldn't take me seriously. I needed to report what was happening, to have some record of it. The officer at the station was sympathetic, but there wasn't much they could do. Adam hadn't threatened me directly, and there was no evidence he had done anything illegal. They told me to keep all the letters and gifts, and to call them if anything escalated. It wasn't much, but it was something. For the next few days, I stayed at Jessica's place, trying to keep a low profile. I deleted Tinder, blocked Adam's number, and avoided going out alone. But the anxiety never left me. I was constantly on edge, always looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see him standing there. Then, one night, everything came crashing down. Jessica and I had gone out for dinner, trying to take my mind off things. It was nice to be out, to feel normal for a little while. But as we walked back to her apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I kept glancing around, but there was no one there. When we got back to the apartment, the door was slightly ajar. Jessica's face paled, and we both froze. She was sure she had locked it when we left. We stood there for a moment, paralyzed with fear, before Jessica whispered that we should call the police. I nodded, my hands shaking as I reached for my phone. But before I could dial, the door creaked open, and there he was, Adam, standing in the hallway, a twisted smile on his face. Jessica screamed, and I dropped my phone, stumbling back in terror. Adam took a step forward, his eyes locked on me. "Why are you running, Sarah?" he asked, his voice cold and menacing. We were having such a good time. I was frozen with fear, unable to move as he came closer. Jessica grabbed my arm and tried to pull me away, but it was too late. Adam lunged, grabbing me by the wrist and yanking me towards him. His grip was like iron, and I could feel the panic rising in my chest. "Let her go!" Jessica shouted, trying to pry his hand off me, but Adam was too strong. He shoved her away, sending her crashing into the wall. She fell to the floor, dazed, as Adam turned his attention back to me. "Why did you ignore me, Sarah?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. "You made me do this. You made me hurt you." I struggled against his grip, trying to pull away, but he was too strong. His other hand closed around my throat, and I could feel the air being squeezed from my lungs. My vision blurred, and I was certain this was the end. But then, out of nowhere, Jessica tackled him from behind, knocking him off balance. His grip loosened just enough for me to break free, and I gasped for air, stumbling back as Jessica fought him off. "Run!" she screamed at me, and I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. Behind me, I could hear the sounds of their struggle, the crashes and grunts as Jessica tried to fend him off. I made it outside, my hands fumbling to unlock my car. I could hear footsteps behind me, and I didn't dare look back. I jumped in the car, locking the doors just as Adam reached the window, his face twisted in rage. He pounded on the glass, screaming at me to let him in, but I didn't stop. I threw the car into gear and sped off, leaving him behind in the rearview mirror. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely drive, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away. I drove straight to the police station, tears streaming down my face as I told them what had happened. They sent officers to Jessica's apartment, and when they got there, they found Adam unconscious on the floor, beaten and bloodied. Jessica was injured, but alive. Adam was arrested and charged with assault, stalking, and breaking and entering. I testified against him in court, and he was sentenced to prison. But even though he's behind bars, I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, watching, waiting. The experience has left me scarred, haunted by the memories of that night. I've moved to a new city, changed my number, and started over, but the fear never really goes away. Every time I go out, every time I meet someone new, I can't help but wonder, will I ever truly be safe again?